If you've been thinking about launching a podcast, but you feel overwhelmed, confused, and just stuck in planning mode, you're not alone. Most people don't fail at podcasting because they lack talent. They fail because they don't have a process. So today I want to walk you through my 4-step podcast launch framework. This is what I use with my clients, and it comes straight from my workbook. So I'm going to be sharing that with you today. And welcome back to my channel. I'm Demetria, podcast producer and founder of the Soul Podcasting Collective. I've been podcasting for over 21 years, you guys, and I'm excited to help you with your podcast. I help founders, creators, and strategists to launch and grow your podcasts confidently. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my workbook on the screen so you can see what I'm doing. And as I talk about this, you can see the page here, but also you can download this workbook for free in the links below. So I'll share that with you in the description box and in the links, and you'll be able to get a copy of this yourself. So this is the very first page after my title page that shares kind of my workflow and how I teach the podcasting process. If you're a person that needs clarity on how to kind of straighten all this out in your mind, this is the way to go. This is how to start. So right here on this page, you're going to see the 4-step process I use, and we're going to walk through that together right now. The first phase is to plan. This is where most people want to launch in a rush. A lot of people want to just get through things quickly, just spit something out there and get ready to go with your show. But it's also where your podcast either gains clarity or it gets kind of caught in the middle where you've launched so quickly that you don't have a full picture of where you're going. So in this phase, we're going to determine your ideal listener, your podcast branding. That's important before you start. And then what your recording tools are going to be, how you're going to get access to these tools, as well as what your studio is going to look like, because you will need to have a dedicated space to do this work of podcasting. So where is that going to be? And we'll figure all that out. Also, we want to know about your show structure. Are you doing interviews? Are you doing solo episodes? How will this work? And then we also want to look at your show topics. So this is not about perfection, really. This is a brainstorming session. This is where you strategize and figure things out, but you want to start here. This is about being intentional. I do believe that if you skip this step, you guys, everything else gets harder and things start to stack on top of each other and don't make any sense. So there's this thing about building. If you've ever watched someone construct a house, or if you've ever watched a building under construction, you have to have the foundation or there's nothing. Nothing will last unless there is a firm and permanent foundation. And so in everything you build, whether you're building a business, you're building a podcast, you're building some type of project that you really like, you're building a family, whatever you're building in life, you need a foundation. What is that foundation for your podcast? Well, this is the step to do that. And you take that step here. That's your first step. And so once you know what you're doing, why you're doing it, who your audience is, what tools you're using, what your topics are, what kind of episodes you're going to be producing, that's kind of your sort of your foundation to get started. And then you can build everything else on top of that. So I won't recommend that you just hop on a microphone and just start talking and then hit record and publish and go, because we really want to think things through before you start. All right, let's look at the second phase. Phase number 2 is produce. We want to make sure you're producing after you've planned. So it's not enough just to plan, because if you plan but you don't produce anything, you're kind of just stuck, right? And that's what a lot of people do, is get stuck on phase number 2. And if you don't produce anything, you don't really have a podcast anymore. You have the idea of the podcast. You have all the things in place, but you just don't have the content coming out on a regular basis. And that's where a lot of creators get stuck. So let's not get stuck there. So this is where the actual creation happens. This is where you record your episodes. You edit your episodes. You write your podcast titles and show notes. You create your basic visuals like your audiograms or anything that you want to create. And again, this is also where, unfortunately, a lot of podcasters burn out at this stage. And I'm so sorry to share that and admit that, but that is just the truth of it. This is the burnout stage. If you are always in the middle of producing and you're never able to come up for air because you're producing so much content and it's overwhelming, yeah, this is where a lot of people burn out. And this is where there are podcast editors and producers that are willing to help you take that off your hands and get you rolling. And so you can do it yourself if you enjoy it, right? And for me, I enjoy producing. It's kind of my meditative process. And our agency does help solopreneurs with their production needs for podcasting. So we can help you. But I also want to encourage you to find a routine that works for you so that if you really do want to take on the task of editing your own shows and producing your own content, that you don't feel like you have to farm out that part of your podcast, and you can do it very easily. All right, so there's the production side. Next, we have the launch phase. This is the most important part. Now, once you produced your first episode, you need to launch and share it with the world. This is where you're going to submit your podcast to directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You're going to share it with your audience on LinkedIn and social media like Instagram. You're going to produce and share. Right? If you have an email list, you're going to announce it to them. You're going to tell your family, your friends, everybody about your podcast. So this is launch day, launch week. And this is where you really just get everyone excited about your brand new podcast. And the last phase of all of this is grow. And this is the longest phase because it never stops. It's your growth phase. And in this phase, this is where you develop a retention strategy to figure out ways to keep your audience coming back for more. This is where you're going to create a digital marketing strategy, a content creation plan, all of the things that go along with growing your podcast online, right? So using your SEO, using your content promotion strategy, your not just your creation, but the promotion of that, the digital marketing that you're going to need. How are you going to keep your audience engaged in your content? How are you going to grow your audience and add more people to the listenership of your show? And eventually you want to explore monetization if that is on your radar. So there's a lot that goes with podcasting, but this is the last step in my process because it is the one step that we continue to be a part of or have it be a part of our plan. You're never gonna completely get out of that step. You're always gonna be on step 4 at some point because you're constantly growing, right? And unless you completely pod fade and you no longer are working on your podcast, you're always going to be in step 4. So if you scroll a little bit down on my podcast launch plan, you'll see questions like in the checklist, it'll say like, how long will each episode be? Why should you start your show? How frequently will this podcast be produced? What's your show about? Who's your audience? How will you brand the show? How will you name the show? Will it be solo, interview-based, or like a combination of both, a mix of both? Maybe you're doing like a roundtable discussion type thing where there are multiple voices on your show at once. Who's your ideal audience? Are you going to pre-record your show or will you be going live? That's another topic that I could definitely reserve for another day. My husband and I both podcast, and so he is running his daily and goes live. I run mine weekly, about twice a week, and I pre-record and edit. So we have a post-production routine for me, but it's not necessary for him because he just goes live. So 2 completely different ways of podcasting, but fulfilling for both of us, each in our own ways. So you get to choose how you want to podcast, figure that out. And then some other questions are, what are your personal goals for the podcast? And so that's going to really kind of develop the kind of show that you create when you know what your goals are, what you're trying to do with the show, what you would like to see happening by the end of 6 months or a year, creating that 60, 90-day plan and a year plan at some point. That's all going to take center stage for you as you develop your podcast throughout the year. Knowing what your goal is and having somewhere to go, having that clear direction is going to help you so much. So I hope that you have enjoyed the first 2 pages of my workbook. And once again, I invite you to download that workbook, which is in the description box below. This workbook is meant to help you think like a podcaster. Okay, so if you're watching this and you're thinking, okay, this actually makes podcasting feel doable. I think I can do this. Congratulations. I think I've made my point on this video if that is what you're thinking right now. And I'm so happy, and I hope that I can be a part of the success of your podcasting journey. In the next video, we're going to talk about planning your podcast. We're going to kind of zoom in to what that planning of your content might look like. I might even show you some examples of how I plan mine, but that's something that we'll plan for the next video. So stay tuned. And for now, I invite you to go back in my archives and look at some of the other videos that might be helpful for you in clarifying your why and getting your mindset clear about where you want to go with your show. So take a look at the next videos, and I'll see you in a bit.